Hey guys, Tamara here. How's it going? I found a new Wi-Fi server down in Brattleboro town, so hopefully these will work better. So I'm going to be giving you our week 11 lecture in pieces. So if we take a look at what we're going to be talking about, it's part 2 in our workbook, which actually has a couple of different sections in it. So if we go to our part 2 workbook, um, there's a segment 1, 2, and 3 that we're going to be working on. So this right now is going to be segment 1 of the workbook. So what we need to do is take a look at the video clips and also a look at the case study. And I'm going to be using my case study with the notes in it because it's easier to follow along with some of the areas that I have highlighted. So what we're doing now is we have videos of people talking about the real life things that we're reading about in the case study. So the first one, what you can do is you copy and paste the URL. So I'm highlighting the URL. I'm just doing a control copy. Whoops, let's get the whole one down there. And then I'm going to go to my server and I'm just going to paste it in. Okay, and what that's going to do is get me to a quick intro to Frog's Leap. Okay, and this is Frog's Leap back in 2011. So we get to see what did this business look like, okay, in that period of time. All right, so that's really cool because you can kind of see, what it looked like. All right, get a feel for it. The next link that I have for you takes you to Frog's Leap. Here, we'll go mute this. And you get to meet the head of marketing, okay? And he's going to be talking about what success means, and that's Jonah Beer. So you want to be listening to him. He has a lot of really good things to share. You can put him on closed caption. Something I like to do is click on these 3 little buttons here. And what that does is that opens a transcript for me. So I can kind of follow along with what he's saying, word by word. And I can even search if I go Control F. And find when he talks about things such as wine, okay, in his transcript. Oh, we can see if he talks about sustainability yet. Right, sustainability. Nope, there's nothing in there yet for sustainability. Okay, so these are things that we want to listen to, take note of what the people are saying, and then look at our workbook and we're going to be learning about it. Okay. So here, Mr. Beers is talking about what success is, and what I'm asking you about are the LOHAS green consumers. Now, the LOHAS is a really cool story. I'm going to go copy and paste this into Google so that we can learn a little bit more about LOHAS, okay? And if we look here, it's Lifestyles of Health and Sustainability. It's a movement that started back in the 80s in California. So William, who started the winery, was kind of this LOHAS mindset. He was a little bit more peripheral because he was kind of a recent college grad, a little bit of a backpacker, kind of like an adventure maverick sort of person. But he was really into these sustainable aspirations of living, okay? And he was also in California. So if we look at the LOHAS market home, and this tells more about these LOHAS people today. And there's even reports, there's the foodie group, of LOHAS. And what happened was by William starting the winery and starting it in an area where there's total competition, everyone's drinking wine, everyone's growing grapes, this is Napa Valley, California. He's in the middle of it all, and he starts a winery. But his winery was different because he was different. He was of the LOHAS mindset. So he was all into living sustainably, buying things organic, working with the community. If we look at these different focus groups, what are they looking at? Health and natural, an eco panel. I don't know. Anyways, all different food group things. But anyways, so this mindset of LOHAS was about yoga and connecting and the environment. And so when he started his winery, he started it with that in mind and was able to really cash in on that new market. Okay. And what's interesting with this is the authenticity of it. So I'm going to go to that section where we're talking about the LOHAS market, which is right here, that green consumer. The average age is 40, so they're a little younger than your average consumer. Demographically, they're a little bit more feminine. They have more balanced diversity, right? It's 62% white and then, 40% mixed. So that's kind of cool. Educated, a little bit more wealthy. So, and this makes them a different market than your average wine market, which is on the previous page, page 147. We're here, we're looking at who the wine consumers were at that period of time in the wine industry. And the main consumer we can see was, of course, white and older. Okay. And that was not the LOHAS market. And that was not the market that William hit. Okay. William was going with this piece right here, this new market that no one was really paying attention to, because singularly, they didn't really add up to much. But as a cohesive group, they really made a lot of sense. And together, they came up to equal more than 30% of the market. And that's plenty of market space for a new business that's just starting. So that really helped out William a lot when he was starting this business. And I want you to talk a little bit more about that. And when I talk about the LOHAS success, I want to get quantitative reasons, because we want to think about, as we're looking at this as business people, numbers are super important. So quantitative, that's quantity. We're talking about numbers. So going back to page number 148, we see there's numbers here. What's our average age? What kind of percentage is the demographic? What's the total value, right? That $209 billion annually of this LOHAS market, this brand new market segment that people weren't really paying that much attention to, and ended up being the place where William was able to launch his company. And going for, so far so good? Okay. Number two, that was number two. Number three, okay, number one was watching the videos. So number three is looking at the triple bottom line strategies. Okay, so how does the winery use triple bottom line strategies? And that's looking at the people, planet, and price or profit. Okay, defining it here, we're talking about stewardship. So stewardship is like leadership. It's like, how are people really standing up to make a difference socially? Okay, and in this case, we're looking at how is he caring about the community, right? Not just having a winery and paying people, the minimum wage and following all the minimum guidelines of California so he doesn't get in trouble. But instead, we're looking at how is he going above and beyond that? How is he really caring for his workforce more than the minimum that's required? Same thing with the environment. With environmental stewardship, we're looking at how is he doing more for the environment than he needs to? How is he not only not damaging the earth, but how is he making the earth better than what it was when he started? Okay. And also looking at that financial stewardship. Now, we all know that Frog's Leap has a $20 million debt, but at the same time, they have net earnings, they have sales, they're supporting the livelihood of many workers, so they're not broke. Okay, and that's something important to keep in mind. When you're growing a business, there's going to be times when you have debt, but as long as that debt's being invested properly to help the business grow more, then it's considered a well-invested debt, okay, more like an investment. So here we're looking at the financial stewardship. If we jump on to page 148 to 149 in our book, okay, we can see right here it's talking about sustaining the California wine industry, okay? And that's where we're bringing in those ideas of the triple bottom line. Okay, so we see it written right here on the next page, which is page 149. Okay, and we see how what he's doing is starting to be different, right? He wants to create more meaning. He's working with this sustainable wine growers conference, right, that he's actually hosting Originally 10 people attended it. Now over 250 wineries are attending it. So if he wants to be the sustainable wine person that's selling to the LOHAS population, why is he working with so many other wineries? Why is he inviting them to sustainable wine growing programs? Why is he working with them to also become green? What do you think? Could be. Okay. Another way to think about it is there's strength in numbers, right? So yeah, he could be the only one out there being green, but he's going to be a little tiny guy holding a little tiny flag. If he can get hundreds of other wineries on board, then they're creating a movement. They're creating a movement that's going to get attention. By them working collectively, they're going to gain more. So the idea of inviting others to be green together actually benefits everybody. And that's behind the formation of that EMS program. Okay, the EMS program is where we're looking at building that sustainability. It's something that was developed by the Department of Agriculture, okay, that he jumped into, and it helps them understand how can they save money in many different ways. It's creating a competitive advantage, but it's also creating a better product and creating better methods of production for his winery. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's jump back. So we're only right now looking at triple bottom line. So let's get that done. Okay, examples of how he's doing this. Okay, his organic growth, his paying people more than a minimum wage with full benefits, hiring people full-time around the year instead of just seasonal. Okay, and then we're looking at growth. Okay, and growth is huge. Okay, you guys with me? Number 4. So think about how a company grows. Think about it as a seedling in the garden, right? Right now, people are planting their gardens. Let's say you plant a seed, okay, maybe a beanstalk, and out pops a seedling, right? And that's awesome. You have this big, beautiful seedling. It looks fantastic. It's fresh. It's, there's not a lot of other stuff around it. It's early in the season. And that's kind of what Frog Sleep was in the beginning when they first started. They were the one that was out there doing the organic, and they popped up and it was exciting and they were great. But you can't just stay a seedling forever. You can't just say, hey, look, I did this, and I'm just going to keep doing it and this is me. Because what happens? Other seedlings start growing around you, right? But they don't stay seedlings. They start getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and they start moving into other parts of the garden and growing fruit and taking more space and taking up some of your resources and maybe even shading you out. And then this little seedling that was so awesome when it first popped up is kind of forgotten. And that's what happens with businesses too. You can start your business and have it be successful, but you have to keep it moving. You have to keep it growing. You have to keep building the resources around it, putting on more compost and fertilizer and water and sun, right? And help nurture that business to continue to grow. And you want to be careful that you don't grow too fast, because then you won't be able to keep up with your growth. You might have your supply chains or your customer service fall apart. And you also don't want to grow too slow, because you might end up losing your market advantage. All right, so what do you do? When we look at our video segment, Jonah was talking about this, right? And he was defining what it meant to be successful. And he gave us this great quote. So when we look at this quote, we're looking at what he's talking about, the ability to create a 50-year plan and carry it out. And that's really key for sustainability, because so many businesses are looking at what can I do this quarter, the next year, and they're not looking beyond that. And the problem with that is they could be making decisions that benefit them right now, but have long-term consequences, right? Right now, I may choose to furlough my workers or let them go because I don't want to pay their salaries. But the long-term consequences, I've just lost all that talent. I've just lost all those people that are dedicated to my fields and know my plants and know how to trim my vines and know how to bottle my wine. And I just lost all of that knowledge, that memory, that wisdom. And a lot of that's irreplaceable. I can bring someone else on board and train them, but they don't have those years of experience that the other workers had. So the idea of having a plan, thinking in the future, having a longer view is going to help you make decisions that keep your business more sustainable. So I started to type up some answers here for you guys. All right, and these are my answers I typed up. So when I'm looking at some of Frog's Leap sustainable growth strategies, one of the things I was looking at was how did they diversify their retail and their wholesale customers? So let's take a peek at this. If I go back to my notes, okay, this Frog's Leap 2011. So here we have them starting 1981 with 653 cases. By 2010, they sold 62,000. Okay, so that's their growth. Looking at where they sell, right? What's their different properties for growing, right? So they have this idea of physically buying more space, okay, to be able to grow product, but they also have this idea of distribution. And they're distributing on 3 levels. They're distributing to restaurants, to supermarkets, and to wine specialists. That enabled them to increase their sales. But today, in the COVID-19 era, this is actually working out really good for them. Because think about it. If part of their retail sales, part of their wholesale distribution, is to restaurants, they've kind of lost that right now, right? They're probably not getting a lot of restaurant business, but they can still sell to supermarkets and definitely to wine specialists, right? To liquor stores. They also have their Fellowship of the Frog retail program. So the nice thing with retail is you can get the full price of the product from the consumer, right? So let's say, I'm going to go back here to my workbook, all right? Let's say with retail pricing, here's a little bit of math. Okay, and I don't know the retail price for their wine, but let's just pretend that I can get a bottle of wine retail for 20 bucks. Okay, nice bottle of wine. Now what that means is I have to be selling that wholesale to my stores for $10. All right, because my stores have to be able to raise that price to cover their own costs. Okay, so I have retail pricing. We'll put this in parentheses at $20 as an example. And I have my wholesale pricing, let's say, is $10. Now, the only people that can get my wholesale pricing are wholesalers. And wholesalers are going to be store owners, right? These are my stores, restaurants, and liquor stores. Or groceries, we'll say groceries, right? Because we already have store. Okay, so my grocery. And these people, my wholesale people, they're buying this in bulk. Okay, they're buying it in volume, they're buying per case. So I'm going to say buying in bulk on volume. Okay, so they're going to be buying cases from me. And they get that discount price. And because they have that discount price, they can then afford to mark it up to the retail price, which is 20 bucks. And that extra $10 is what they use to cover their staff, their electricity, their rent, their marketing, everything that they need to keep their business operating. So I want to make sure that I have good wholesale pricing so my stores can then sell at retail and make a profit because they're helping me by selling that product. My consumers, my retail pricing, that would be for my Frog's Leap club, they're paying 20 bucks. Okay, and the reason why I'm charging them $20 is because I don't want to undercut my stores. Okay, so my retail pricing is going to be my customers, right? My wine customers, my wine consumers. I'm sorry, I should say consumers. Okay, so these are my individuals. Okay. And even though I earn, right, Frog's Leap, we'll say Frog's Leap earns more money per customer, per bottle sale, they sell less bottles, right? It's really hard to sell a lot of bottles to customers. It's easier to sell cases, right? You get more bottles sold in that bulk, all right? So, but I don't want to undersell my bulk buyers. And my grocery store price is going to be the retail pricing. So there's going to be wine consumers, and this is going to be grocery store consumers, right? All the individuals getting my wine. So whether they buy it direct from my store or they buy it from the grocery store, they're still paying that retail price of 20 bucks. Okay? So where's the money for Frog's Leap? Well, hopefully for Frog's Leap, and we don't know this, but we can guess maybe the production costs, right, for them to make that $10 bottle of wine might be like $6 or $7. Okay? We can say maybe it's $6. So every time they say, we'll say approximate, right? So every time I sell one of my bottles for 10 bucks wholesale, I'm making $4. Every time I sell one of my retail bottles direct to a consumer through my club or however I do it, I'm making how much? That's right, $14. Okay, because it's the $10 markup plus the $4 profit that I make off of that wholesale price. Okay, so these are the different levels, the different tiers that I'm able to sell my product, and this helps me build sustainability in my company because I'm diversifying the way I'm selling it, the way I'm earning money, the different costs, the different clients, how I'm interacting with them. Okay, so I have these multiple places of sales, I have different price points, and hopefully I have loyal customers. Okay, if we take a look at page 150 and 151, they talk a little bit more about other ways that they're experiencing their sustainable growth. When they purchased their extra acreage, they were able to grow more wine, okay, but they increased it moderately, okay, modestly. They didn't go and start planting acreage of vines everywhere. They're doing it slowly, little by little. Okay, and by doing that, it helps you take your time. If there's going to be a problem with an area, it's not like you put all your eggs in one basket. Like right now, we have an economic downturn. Do they want to have huge amounts of grapes and large amounts of labor, or would it be better for them to have something that's more right-sized, right? So those are the different things you want to be thinking about when you're looking at growth. You want to have a little bit of restraint that you're not growing too fast, but you don't want to just be relaxed that, oh, I've done this, I have nothing left to do, right? Okay. The last part of this section, almost, is looking at number 5. So number 5 is looking at how growth should be a subsidiary goal to sustainability. And what we mean by a subsidiary goal means it comes second, right? First, you want to be sustainable, then you can grow. Okay, if you're only working to grow, you're not going to have a business that's capable of withstanding unforeseen things. Okay, and we're starting to see a lot of that now with the COVID-19, which businesses were set up with a more sustainable base and which ones were set up in a high growth model that had a lot of risks involved. If we look at the 5 steps that Frog's Leap took and how they paid off, this is going to help us understand a little more their sustainability philosophy. So the EMS is a really big program, okay? And that was able to help them improve their soils and ecosystems, right? The environmental health. And what is the outcome for Frog's Leap, right? We're looking at this extra pain involved, right? They had to go and do this extra work to be sustainable. Why did they do it? They didn't have to. Page 151 to 153 talks about this. And if we look at this a little more, their philosophy of sustainability, we can see that there's the 5 areas. There's the EMS. And what that does is that's from the 1970s. It's an old system of farming, and it includes dry farming, which was done before they had sophisticated irrigation systems. It's organic, it's biodynamic, it used compost and crop coverings. But the benefits of doing this is the dry farming means you're not using extra water, you don't have the cost of all kinds of expensive irrigation. At the same time, your crop is more at risk of drought. But when you're using biodynamic methods such as compost, it helps create more humidity and life in the soil. So it's offsetting those damages that you might get from doing dry farming without a biodynamic environment. So by having these systems working together, the benefit that he gets in the long run is he has healthier soils, he has reduced risks for crop failure because his plants are stronger, he has reduced costs for water And we saw how difficult it is to get water in California. He has reduced liability for water, right? As they're starting to ration water in California. Not all agricultural areas are able to get the water that they need. And by him not being more self-sufficient, right, not having that need to use so many outside resources, he becomes more sustainable, right? So he's more self-sufficient. He's also reducing his waste costs because he's reusing all of his materials. Waste costs, so he doesn't have to be paying to have them picked up. So all of these different outcomes stem from just this one simple step of taking care of his soils. And then you want to think about, well, what's going on in the HR function, right? The human resource function. So when we go here and we look at number 2, EMS for people, what kind of values are we doing? And we have this quote here about giving back, better quality of wine, better quality of life, okay? So thinking about what that means. Number 3 is looking at energy. And as he took those $20 million and invested it heavily into an energy plan, right, he was also able to become energy self-sufficient, where now he's producing his own solar, his own geo, he's running his own operations using his own self-generated energy. So he's saving more money that way. So yes, he has to pay back the investment to put in the systems, but he's still saving more money in the long run because he's not paying money back into the energy company. And he's also creating energy. And if the grid goes down, he has his own energy supplies, right? He can be selling back the energy. And he's not so reliant on the grid. Okay, and we saw in the California fires, you know, that grid was what was behind some of those fires, right? So having that resiliency in their energy systems really helps build more sustainability for the whole business, okay? Then we have these green building standards. So when he built his tasting facility, he made sure that he was using the most energy efficient and energy generating building. Again, that's really great for tourism. It's a great example of his sustainability and putting his values where they belong. It also saves him energy, okay? 30 to 40% less energy, 40% less water. Again, you know, by working in the sustainable way, he's paying a little bit up front, but in the long term, he's saving a lot, okay? And the last one, we're looking at innovative sales programs, the idea of having fun. Okay, and that's important, okay, really big. That was like one of the most important things that they had, and even like how they started the whole company name in the first place, the idea of Frog's Leap, and it's just fun, okay? So all of those are things that help build sustainability, and if you think back to our sustainability lens, and you think back to Sumat Kamana, and the idea of Munai and love, okay, that ties right in with that idea of fun. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys a pause there. So we finished that first section. Oops, one last question. How do you think Frog's Leap efforts to become successful have been sustainable or not? So that's your own opinion. What do you think about this? Right? Put a lot of work in on the front side, paying off on the back side. Does it work? Does it not work? You tell me. All right, guys, thanks. I'm going to let you go on this one, and I'll make a new video for segment 2. Enjoy.